Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Italy saved it for late against Poland, but 3 points is 3 points, and Roberto Mancini will take that going forward. But how did Italy do it? Where did Poland go wrong? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Italy beat Poland. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. The bell below does give you notifications regarding our daily, organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half and see where Italy went right and why Poland struggled. And then we get to the second half and look at the changes that Poland made and how Italy were able to win the game at the death. But first, let's get to the lineups. We have Italy in a 4-3-3. Chiesa, Insigne, and Bernardeschi up front, Barella and Verratti just ahead of Jorginho. Then you get to Poland, more of a 4-4-2 diamond, 4-3-1-2, Milik and Lewandowski ahead of Zielinski, and in midfield they went with Linetty, Goralski, and they went with Szymanski. So we look at Poland, we look at Italy. Italy had the better chances in the first half, so let's get to them and see what they did right. So we look at why Italy dominated the first half. From a stylistic perspective, all of it made sense. You look at some of their opening chances. When we do get to it, a lot of it stemmed down the left-hand side. Insigne dropping off. He was dropping off into space between Goralski on both sides to Szymanski and Linetty, trying to combine with Verratti, shifting the ball wide so that they could get Biraghi forward. Sometimes when you look at it, if they have it out like this, it's 4 men against 2. Most of the time it was 3 because you'd have Bernardeschi shifting around, looking to find space. And that was down to the fact that because they had the front 2 and they had Zielinski sitting on Jorginho, the shuttlers had to push out to get up to the wide players. So for Italy, it was about quickly transitioning the ball and cycling out to the wide area so they could push the fullback forwards and shift Poland's midfield diamond out of position. You look at one of the opening chances. What does it stem from? It's Verratti in the opening minutes finding Insigne in that channel. He drifts off there. Verratti comes into play, plays it back to him, and then he drifts laterally to back in a defender, plays it back to him, and then what happens there is that Jorginho ends up joining the play, and the ball is guided from Insigne into the path of Jorginho, who curls his effort off the crossbar. That was what they were trying to do, get players forward. The midfield was very tight, and that was positive based on the fact that they were able to retain possession. They were pressing and closing down quickly. They had Verratti who could retain possession and deal with the pressure of Szymanski. Jorginho eventually did gain control of the game. We'll get to that in a second. And then they had their shuttler pushing out forward, and he was pivotal in the sense that he was making darting runs and looking to play in advanced positions. When you think about some of the other chances they do have, you see Insigne dropping off into that space, receiving a pass, linking it with Jorginho. Jorginho clips the diagonal ball out, and what happens here is that Chiesa nods it around Recca, breaks forward, but he delivers his cross into the box, and Szczesny was able to push it away. It fell to Florenzi. His shot was blocked. Goralski trying to take matters into his own hands, playing a diagonal out to the left-hand side. That was short. You see Florenzi step into it, nod it into the path of Chiesa, who's able to break free. What happens here is that he locates the darting run of Insigne coming across. His darting run, he runs between the 2 defenders, guides his effort off the crossbar. You're seeing the chances that are being made in wide areas, pushing the fullbacks forward, getting Insigne to drop off, getting him to break him behind. This one now is about their poor distribution. Ball played out to Recca, looking for Linetty. The pass is short. Jorginho instantly cuts it off as they try to press from the front, runs past Bednarek, fires his shot on goal. Szczesny pushes it away. We'll get to one more opportunity. There was one quick free kick that we saw Florenzi break forward and Chiellini forced to save, but this chance was much more important, and we'll get to it now. Insigne cutting in from the left, looking to find Verratti, plays it to Verratti. This was after Poland dropped off a bit deeper, and what happens there is that Verratti sees the pressure from Zielinski, doesn't matter, clips it out to Florenzi. At that time, Insigne is still continuing his run in behind Goralski. You have Florenzi breaking forward at Recca. What happens here is that the ball now is played into that left half space for for Insigne, who drags out Goralski and then back heels the ball into Florenzi, who again got a round record with these, fires his shot on goal. Again, a great opportunity for Italy. They were creating chances at will, retaining possession at will, and this was down to the fact that they were really pressing from the front foot. They were looking to get on the ball. They were looking to win the ball quickly. When they pressed, they had the front three pushed out. We'll put it out like this. Goralski dropping in. Bernardeschi initially started to press from the front. They had Insigne and Chiesa pushing out into wider areas. That now leaves the midfield battle intact. So the midfield battle is intact. The front players are up front. And then what happens here is that the fullbacks press the fullbacks. How does Poland get out of that? Try to play a few long balls. We'll get to that in a bit. But that was how they shut them down. Ideally for Italy, what they would want was that if this press wasn't working and the ball was shifted out into the wider players and the fullbacks and the advanced players were higher, they'd have the shuttlers come across. So when you look at it from this perspective, you have the shuttler come across, then you have Verratti and Insigne cover off the space for them. Ball goes to the other side, Verratti pushes out, and then again you have the midfielders coming across and ensuring that no play is played through the midfield. Ideally, Italy would want their wider players to push out, and if they could push out into those spaces there, then what happens is that all you need is that you could have Glick and Bednarek push forward, and what happens is that you have Insigne sitting on Goralski, and what happens here is that you have the wide players stick on the wide players and the midfield stick on the midfield. But Italy were getting forward in the sense that they were pressing from the front, they were winning the ball back quickly, and Insigne was dropping off. There were times where Bernardeschi was dropping off. So look at the midfield as it is. You have three in that zone. You have Chiesa a bit higher. And what happens here is you have a midfield three. And look at all those Italian players just so close to each other within proximity, interchanging positions. That was how they're able to dominate the midfield. That was how they did it. And then again, if you're able to keep the ball, knit it around, and then push the fullbacks forward, you have to get a shuttler out there. And then you can easily play it into midfield and shift it across again. That was how Italy were getting, in a simplistic manner, that was how Italy were going about their business. So now let's get to Poland and see why they struggle and how they look to encounter what Italy were trying to do. So now we look at Poland and why they struggled in the first half. A lot of that stems from the fact that when you look at the way that they did line up, they have the midfield diamond. They're trying to ensure that they could dominate possession in those areas, but it did leave them exposed out in wide areas where Florenzi and Biraghi, who looked to push forward, forced the shuttlers in Linetti and Szymanski to drift out of position. And the fact that even though they had Zielinski dropping off on Jorginho, you could have Verratti slide into that space, and that really helped them in those 4v3 battles in the sense that they wanted to stop Bonucci and Chiellini from playing out of the back. They didn't want Jorginho to play passes from deep and dictate the tempo of the game, but they were still able to push forward, and Poland never really stopped that, or in terms of like really slowing it down. What they ended up having to do was to drop off a bit deeper. They had now still Zielinski on Jorginho, but even if Verratti dropped off deep, they could throw Lewandowski or Milik to try and close him down, and that really helped them out in a sense. Although Italy still created chances, it was much better because when you look at the opening 5 minutes, Jorginho had his way because Zielinski wasn't stepping to Jorginho, and the fact that Verratti was able to drop off. And then when you think about it, Insigne dropping off, Bernardeschi dropping off, they were just overloaded in that central area, and then with that central area clogged, it allowed balls to be pushed out into wide areas and the fullbacks to push forward or get out to Chiesa to run at the defense. When you think about Poland, a lot of their chances stem from direct play because they were unable to play out the back, and when they tried to play out the back against Italy's pressure, they made mistakes. Reka, Bednarek, they conceded possession, which did lead to chances for Italy to score goals. So now they really have to think about how are they going to get the balls into their strikers. It's the big issue with this Polish side. They struggle to get the ball into Lewandowski and Milik. They are often starved for creativity. We saw it here again. Just look at the way Italy press. The front three step out. Like I said, you get the fullbacks forward, and the Italian fullbacks press the Polish fullbacks. And then you have the midfield battle here. And what really stems from the midfield battle is that you have the front three. You have the midfield three against the midfield three. We see the first instance where Szczesny kicks the ball out to Linetti, who gets across Verratti, and then you see Szymanski pass played into Szymanski, who ends up rolling Jorginho and playing it into Milik, who ends up running at the back four, but Beretta comes across, makes the foul, bundles him over, fouls him, and that was one instance where Poland looked like they could have broken free. Another instance, you see a long ball again, Bednarek picks up the ball, Bernardeschi closes him down. What happens? He plays a long ball between the lines for Milik, who drops it down to Lewandowski. Verratti is there quickly to close down that space and foul him. They were able to get the long balls in between the lines because of the way that Italy were pressing from the front, in the sense that they were pushing the three forward, they were pushing the fullbacks forward, and the midfield bank were looking to close in tight. So there was space between the lines, but the problem was they weren't linking. Lewandowski and Milik were often challenged by Chiellini and Bonucci, and there was never really any combination play. So that was one way of looking at it. There's another attack in particular on the counter where you see Szymanski able to poke the ball beyond Verratti. Then Zielinski gets the ball and he's able to bypass his marker, and what happens there is that you have the two wide players pushing out, and you see the pass played in between Florenzi and Bonucci for Lewandowski, but again, it's just a bit too heavy, and it sums up Poland in a nutshell. Just not being able to find the proper pass. He ends up clipping it to the far post. Milik does fire a shot off a defender for a corner, but again, not enough, not getting their strikers the service in the box where they need to be. Jorginho was dispossessed one time by Linetti and Milik, and that did see Lewandowski pick up the ball, and then he tried to find Linetti, who was able to bypass Jorginho and Verratti and slide into the center backs, but the ball was overhit. But when you look at it as a nutshell, Poland were struggling without the ball in wide areas, not coping in midfield with the movement of Insigne and Bernardeschi, and not being able to stop Verratti and Jorginho from dictating the tempo of the game. Going forward, they weren't offering anything as well. So now we have to look to the second half to see how they attempted to change things, and if Italy were able to, and how Italy were able to finally score a goal. So Poland shifted out into a 4-4-1-1 going into the second half. They brought on Kuba, they brought on Grozicki. That meant Milik pushed up a bit higher just in behind Lewandowski, and it did give Jorginho freedom to pick up the ball and dictate tempo and build attacks from deeper. And what it also did was it provided Poland, for the benefit of them, protection in wide areas. Kuba and Grozicki could track the runs of Biraghi and Florenzi breaking forward, and that was pivotal. But it did leave them more undermanned and midfield. Zielinski dropped off with Goralski there, and they tried to protect the back four. They didn't really push out. They still tried to build out of the back, but Italy's pressing was low, identified early. Again, they stick to their laurels. You have them pushing out wide into that center back position. What happens here is that the wider players stick out. From the goal kick, now you have Goralski dropping off, and Insigne blocks off the pass to him. What ends up happening here is that you see Zielinski again push off, so they think they could get that pass out with Zielinski. But what happens here is that Jorginho steps up a bit higher. Now with Jorginho stepping up, if that pass goes into Zielinski, they played into him. Jorginho steps, and there's the issue. So they weren't able to play out of the back like that. And in the sense that when Italy didn't have possession of the ball, it stuck the same. They pushed the wide. They actually had Bernardeschi and they had Insigne push out into the wider areas. They had Verratti step out to the left, and then they had Chiesa push out to the right to press from the front. So Poland never really had the opportunity to build from the back, and the other opportunity that they did have to do that was when they played it back to Szczesny later on in the second half. You have Insigne pushing out to the keeper. You have the wider players also pushing out, and what happens there is that the ball is played to Zielinski, who is quickly closed down by Jorginho, and when he tries to play the pass into Reka, what happens here is that Barella intercepts it. Now with Barella intercepting it and pushing forward, he plays it to Zielinski, he plays it to Bernardeschi, who easily rolls Zielinski and fires a shot over the net. Warning signs for Poland, but that was how Italy were able to prevent them from playing out of the back in a nutshell. We get to how Poland got their chances. We drop off Italy back into their base shape here, and they basically pounced on Italy's mistakes in the second half. Italy kind of switched off a bit in the sense that they weren't really doing the job that they did in the first half. Obviously, you can't press all game, so your energy levels do dip. And what we ended up seeing here was Zielinski being able to get on the ball. No one steps to him, no one presses him. He's able to clip a diagonal ball over Biraghi for Kuba. Kuba's able to break forward, but he can only force a save from Donnarumma. But again, just a simple diagonal out. Zielinski finally offers a decisive moment for Poland, and there Kuba possibly should have done better. Again, warning sign. Then we get to the mistakes that they make. Insigne on the ball. I mean, not Insigne, Verratti on the ball. Simple back heel that he should play back to Chiellini. He ends up losing the ball here. And what we see is that Milik picks it up. Milik pressed, won the ball, cuts in, has Goralski making the overlapping run. Goralski makes the overlapping run, so he plays the reverse ball in, but his cross flashes through the box. No one attacks it, but again, that's something that you don't want Marco Verratti to be doing. He does it. They get away with that. Then we see Insigne after Italy's counterattacking, which wasn't that good, very slow. There was one time where they had a 4v2, ended up not getting a chance from it. Insigne ends up picking up the ball after that counterattack, didn't work out, tries to play a loose ball into Florenzi. Goralski again steps ahead of it. He plays it to Lewandowski, brushes off Jorginho, and what you have here is now the two center backs splitting because one of them has to step to Lewandowski, plays the through ball in, Grozicki picks it up, Grozicki ends up firing a shot on goal that Donnarumma pushes away, and what happens here is that Milik ends up picking up the rebound and getting across Chiellini, but he can't fire a shot on goal. Poland had the chances. A lot of it stemmed from Grozicki, not Goralski, and what happened, and him pushing down the left-hand side did offer a threat, but his crosses were often poor. One time he couldn't beat Florenzi, and when he was given the opportunity, he was unable to make the difference. And then Italy, a lot of their chances stem from the balls being switched out to Chiesa. One time, just Chiellini nodding a loose ball into him. He's able to turn Berezzinski, run at Glick, fires a shot off Glick, flies over for a corner kick. The best chance they did have prior to the goal, it stems from them being able to build out of the back. And like I said, Jorginho able so much time, although he was bypassed on several occasions, still so much time to pick up the ball, picks up the ball, able to run forward, plays it into Verratti. You have Insigne dropping off. There's the triangle there. They don't really want to push out. Then Jorginho eventually shifts the ball out to Chiesa, and what happens there is that Chiesa now is able to cut in on Kuba, and we have Bernardeschi running off Reka. Cross is played in. He's free on goal. He nods his effort wide, but those are golden chances that Italy should convert. Another chance, some great work down the right-hand side. Cross played to Biraghi, breaking in late. He fires a shot over the net, but he's able to get the winner. How does that stem? Italy make a few changes. Piccini comes on. You end up seeing Lasagna coming on, and Lasagna moves to center forward, and they have Insigne pushing out into the wider area. Then you have them in more of a 4-3-3 with a center forward. They were lacking a reliable goal scoring option. The goal comes in the 90th minute from a corner kick, and it's simply Lasagna just running to the front post, beating Milik to the ball, nodding it to the back post. No one picking up Biraghi, who's able to tap it in, and that was how Italy got the job done. When you break down the game as a whole, they did create the better chances. They were pressing from the front. Poland did have a few opportunities. They were unable to pounce on them. They were unable to execute. And as a whole, they still look like a broken side trying to find their way. So games against this opposition does help. But again, no real service to Lewandowski or Milik. They got opportunities through Italy's mistakes. Whereas for Italy, They did do better here. They pressed well. It looks like they do have a combination with Jorginho, Verratti, and Insigne, but where are the goals going to come from? Meet me in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. Can Italy push forward? How great can they be? Is this the stepping stone that Mancini needs? And what about Poland? How do they find a way to get the best out of Lewandowski? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you do like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.